we're gonna spend probably 15-20 minutes at the end of this answering your questions. So if you have any questions, just go ahead and type down those questions. Okay. Today we're not going to be talking a lot of like watering this down, really hard facts, how this is set up for Belkins and how we utilize this, right? So from what you see on the screen right now that's how we see the inbound process, right? So there are different sources or landing pages for leads. So people can register on the website. There might be a referral lead or a direct inquiry to people who are really sending emails to sales Belkins or marketing Belkins.io, something like that, right? Every lead has a different touch point. For example, on our website, we have a book a call button, right? So people just go ahead and book a call. We have one input form on the website where people can just, hey, contact us and just put your email, that's it. We have different pop-ups like, hey, get 20 leads, hey, do this. We have a chat. We have a blog newsletter, a blog sign up. You see, we doing webinars here, right? And what is interesting and why I see this is very important to highlight during this webinar is that depending on an entry point, we have a different leads lifecycle stage. So the lifecycle stage is sort of like the stage where you can determine the buying intent of a lead, or sort of like the nurture phase of the lead. So for example, on HubSpot, always the subscriber is the first entry point. So the subscribers have the lowest buying intent. And then obviously opportunity has the highest buying intent, right? So depending on where the customer engages with you or what is the page they registered, you can automatically, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, you can automatically set up a certain life cycle. And then depending on that life cycle, you can treat the prospect differently. So in a way, your process for working with subscribers or working with marketing qualified leads or with the opportunity can be so different. And based on that, you can even assign a different owner. So for example, if you go ahead and you book a call on the website and you finish up that booking page where you answer the questions about your budget, about your problems, what you're looking for. So you kind of go through a certain qualification process in a way. So when this call is booked, it goes straight to our sales exec, right? So in a way, you already are an opportunity because you are a pre-qualified, interested person or a business that has a need, that has the budget, that wants to talk to us. So you are in the opportunity stage. So in a way, when we talk and we confirm these opportunities, then the sales exec can really directly work with you and sort of like understand and create a scope of work and so on and so forth. And this is very interesting because transitioning from just entering the Belkins website and being an opportunity and working with our sales exec takes only one step, 1 minute. So I don't need a team or I don't need a lot of things happening at the same time. It's just a very streamlined, very efficient process. Whereas if you're entering and requesting information about our pricing, or you wanted to have a pop-up, so we don't know what your intent is, right? Then you can go to our inbound SDR so that you go through the inbound qualification process where you get on a quick call with an SDR, or SDR sends you a couple of emails and asks some questions, right? Which is also different from, for example, you guys going to a chat and asking something in the chat where you can be a lead and then can be processed by our SDR. So the point that I'm making here, and this is so great, is that you're treating your website as sort of like you're strategically look at your website from the standpoint of what are the entry points of my leads, and then depending on the entry points, using HubSpot as your platform and integrating all of these small pieces of entering points, right? You can understand and you can create a process for each individual life cycle and make the process super, super efficient, and then treat that as the standalone thing, right?
And yeah, exactly. And I think, it's really instructive to think about, what happens if we don't get this right? We probably won't provide someone with as good of an experience as we would, if we have it clearly mapped out and if we execute on that. A good example would be a marketing lead that maybe just went on the blog or said yes to a newsletter, getting a call from an SDR. It's like they're not ready to talk to anybody yet. That's actually making them a little turned off that they're getting a call so quickly. On the other hand, you might have somebody that's actually ready to talk, that's highly interested, and then those leads for some reason don't get to the sales team fast enough, that's time is money. We all know that if somebody waits too long, they're going to go to a competitor, you know? So I think you got to nail this, and it's a little different for each business, but it's also, the principles are exactly the same overall, you know?
Yeah. And exactly to your point is that depending on the life cycle and buying intent, there might be different number of touch points that you need to make to convert that prospect, right? Whereas, for example, with a subscriber, you really need maybe 10 touch points where you start slow with some marketing emails and then some advertising, maybe some invitations to webinar. And with the opportunity, for example, you maybe need only 3 to 5 touches, right? So what is interesting is that you can create we call it like a nurturing sequence or a process for each individual life stage, depending on their landing page. And you can determine how many sales touch points you need to do to convert that prospect to an opportunity. So then you can make a sale. And you can measure each one of those stages of the process individually. And that is why, for example, what I love about HubSpot is that each and every entry page can be considered as a different sort of like instance, right? So in a way, you can create multiple forms, you can create multiple landing pages, you can create multiple instances of entry lead, and then using the workflows that we're going to talk in a minute, you can create those sequences and those nurturing sequences individually for each and every one, and then during the reporting understand which one works and how they work and how they convert, which is like amazing, I think. So moving on, I wanted to talk with you guys about how you can set up this HubSpot lead collection process that I really love. And so it's typically takes like, I think, a few minutes, but it takes like 4 steps. So on HubSpot, under marketing, you have HubSpot form. Essentially, this is the instance that you can use to collect leads from the website. The forms can have different input fields. They can be so different. So the pop-up can be a form, the contact us can be a form. There will be one input email can be form, a call can be form, whatever. But what is interesting is that you have like a builder that you can build different forms. And so what we did, so every form on our website was pre-built on HubSpot as the HubSpot form. And then our developers real quickly connected, because we have a custom-made website, they connected the HubSpot form through API with our website, with our CMS. And in this manner, whenever someone fills out the form on the website, they directly fills out the form on HubSpot in a way. So that gives me this unique ability to understand which forms are filled, when they're filled, and then I can create multiple unique forms on HubSpot, which is like amazing, because then what I do is that I create a workflow on HubSpot about treating each and every form individually and then nurturing that specific form based on the form submitted, which is the easiest way of kind of categorizing and bucketing down different type of prospects here. And then you can adjust and track and so on and so forth. So here's how it looks typically. So let me kind of highlight for you. So when I have a new product, Leads Force, right? And they have a trial. So what I did, I created the form on HubSpot. I called Leads Force app registration form, and I triggered an API whenever this form is submitted, right? Well, whenever this form is submitted, and I know this, what I can do is I can say, hey, HubSpot, whenever there's a new form submission, please make sure that you set up a contact property of the lifecycle as a marketing qualified lead, because I'm treating that lead as a marketing qualified lead. And please set up a status as new, right? Because it was triggered just now. So this is a new lead, a new marketing lead that just submitted the form for me. That easily, right? Then I say, hey, set up a contact owner and my BDR, right? So he's my BDR. So it means that every time there is a new contact, I can set up a new owner. And what is interesting here is that depending on the form, you can have multiple owners, you can have multiple lead statuses, you can have multiple life cycles. So I can say, if you fill out the form A, then maybe the contact owner will be my sales exec. If you set up a form B, then my contact owner will be my BDR, which is like amazing, because in this manner, we automatically can assign and kind of streamline leads in different directions and measure them differently, right? After that, I would say, okay, you wanted to add something here, Ross?
Just going to say, yeah, I mean, what you're seeing here is the workflows tool in HubSpot, extremely powerful, and a really good rule of thumb that I, borrow from VP of marketing at HubSpot named John Dick is, automation without personalization is really just spam, right? So the reason why you can have a workflow for each form or each different life cycle stage is to make sure that it's, highly personalized and really creating a journey that if you were the customer or the prospect that you would want to go on, if you were looking at this product or service. And so there's probably lots more we could dig into as far as like technical ways of workflows and this and that, but just want to make that point about personalizing.
Yeah, I mean, this is so basic what I'm showing you right now. This is like A or 101, right? But the point is that I really wanted just to show you that how easily you can actually create that personalization process for your users that won't take you like hours or weeks to develop or have even hire someone. That's really kind of very straightforward here. So for example, once we have an owner, I say, hey, wait for 4 minutes before you send an email. And then I say, send an email on my BDR behalf. So in a way, whenever I have a new lead, for example, a client of mine wanted to register at 7, 8 p.m. Eastern time with off hours, right? And my BDR is already having some drink on Friday, right? But if we don't get back to that lead right now, then they would go for a competitor, right? And which I don't want. But I cannot say my BDR to stay late nights to answer emails from the new leads that comes in through, or even follow up with them when they registered, right? So what we did, we say that, hey, in 4 minutes when they registered, send a personalized email depending on the on form submission on my BDR behalf, greeting the client, making sure that they know that we know that they registered, appreciating their time, their interest, maybe asking some questions, maybe sending a link to a meeting invite. And in this manner, the client would feel like, hey, there's a person that actually responded to me at 8 p.m. or 9 p.m. because you can create a very personalized email as an image that it's not an automatic spam email was sent, but actually an email from a person that was sent, right? And this is like amazing because in this manner, we are getting back to our clients faster than our competitors are doing. In this manner, our conversion is much higher. And then we wait for 2 days, for example, to say like if they respond or not. Oh, sorry about that. And then what is interesting here, after, for example, 2 days, I can say, once they registered and I invited them to our platform, did they spend my trial leads? I say, hey, because I have a custom metric, which is number of credits spent, so how many leads they purchased within Leads Force. So, and this metric is sent to HubSpot through API that my engineers also did, because you guys have, you have an amazing API. But the point is that if I say that this number is greater than 50, then I can trigger one branch. And if it's less than 50, I can trigger a different branch. So depending on the user behavior and the metric, I can set it up differently. And then I can track whether they clicked on it or not. And if they not, then I can this workflow. If they click, I can do this. So in a way, then I can create even more and more personalization for sorry about that, for each client. Oh, my bad. Okay. And then what is interesting sorry about that. So what is interesting is that once the workflow is finished, I can set up a goal. For example, like, what do I want to achieve with this? Do I want a registration? Do I want a response? Do I want an engagement, a booked call? And then depending on the result, they can exit the process, the workflow, or I can finish it by, for example, setting up a task for my BDR, saying, hey, follow up with the prospect manually, right? Because they didn't go through that. Or I can enroll them in a different workflow, in a different nurturing sequence, depending on their user behaviors, right? And using this algorithm, this process, what we are doing right now, so our numbers are, and we have multiple companies and multiple projects, but specifically for the agency, we are probably getting around 1,500 leads month over month. We are getting about 400 new deals created, 400 new opportunities with a closing rate of 30%. And these numbers are being processed only by two BDRs, and obviously sales execs that are taking calls. But 1,500 leads are being processed by two BDRs. Can you imagine this? Like, really, like, it's not 100, it's not 200, it's 1,500 leads with about like 40% conversion into appointment booked, with a high closing rate, and with a very high response rate for all the clients are categorized, all of them are tagged, all of them are nurtured, all of them are taken care of, all of them are working and passing through subscriber to opportunity, right? And we were not able to achieve this without actually having the clear streamlined process and a very powerful technology partner like HubSpot platform that enable us to do that. So Russ, questions to you. Working with other clients or working with companies and with partners, can you share some sort of like maybe best practices or some things that you saw in the past about like utilizing HubSpot for their inbound appointment setting, and maybe just kind of handpicking certain, maybe missing the names, but really like how they utilize the process in a similar fashion or there was that what we did, or there was a bit different process, but also efficient with the following numbers.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think what you've shown is really the core foundation that a lot of my partners use for their own website and for lead nurturing. I think there's definitely something to be said for tailored content. If you are someone that's needing to educate your customers during the sales process, or if that's a normal part of the way you close deals, I think having the right inbound content to match the different lifecycle stages or the different ways that they've interacted with your website or your marketing activity is crucial. And what's great about HubSpot is you can measure everything, right? We can measure the attribution source, the place where they first, found us, or we can see if they, clicked on that link that you emailed them, and did they view that PDF? How long did they spend on that PDF, right? And I would just say some of that custom reporting, some of that tailored content is what varies from one partner to the next. But, most of them have embraced, this strategy that you're showing, because like you said, it really limits the amount of time they have to spend on the manual email sends or the phone calls to someone that they're not sure is even interested, because they're running a business, they're doing a million other things too. So I think I hope that helps. But to me, the biggest thing that is an opportunity is, there's a lot of noise, right? There's a lot of people reaching out to so and so on LinkedIn or emailing them for new products. So how do you stand out with some content that's actually matching where they are in your buyer's journey? Michael, I think you're on mute still.
I think I was just talking to myself here.
Yeah.
Thanks Ross for answering this. I mean, I so agree with you, and I think that personalization and personalization at scale is very important, right? Because really having only one process at scale when you talk to hundreds of individuals, it wouldn't allow you to have a very high conversion and satisfaction rate among your clients, because in that manner, like I hate whenever I sign up for something, I'm getting too much calls these days, really, because people treat me as the buyer if I left the information somewhere, and I'm not a buyer, right?
Right.
So, and I think that answered the question of why do you need to have different life cycles? Why do you need to treat them differently? Why do you need to have the right automation that will be assigned to right individuals in the right time, right?
Yeah, and it's just a shift in how we sell, right? It should be going from, hey, Michael, I heard you want to buy this. You ready to talk? Are you ready to sign? To, hey, how can I help? Or, hey, I thought this, PDF or this white paper would be, useful for you, given that you were on this page on our site. Check it out here. It's just putting the customer first instead of the
sale
closing
first,
the
right?
deal, the sale.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. So I wanted to next touch base on the HubSpot scoring attribution that you mentioned, Ross, here. So HubSpot, and I can kind of tell you right now what is this. Basically, essentially, Because HubSpot is integrated everywhere, they track your website, they can track your forms, they can track the emails. So essentially, it's like a huge tracking friend, right? What they can do, they can track the behavior of the users engaging with your content. Like Ross mentioned, you can send an email, then you can track email opened, reply to, link clicked, PDF open, how much time you're spending, where do you spend, whether you go to the website, what are you clicking, what are you reading through, are you opting out, are you booking something, are you attending the webinar, do you have a deal, do you don't have a deal, have you been sent a contract? So you can imagine there are a lot of things that they can track. And what is interesting is that, and this is why I decided to sign up for HubSpot in the first place, because I had this idea of being able to create a process depending on the user behavior and then nurture that user about based on what that person was doing on the website or doing with my content. And HubSpot has the great feature for this. So basically, when you go to HubSpot, you click on manual lead scoring, you're going to see this page. And on this page, right, they're going to tell you to build positive signals and negative signals. So the positive signal essentially is something that a person is doing positively. For example, I can say, hey, HubSpot, give 1 score to a person who visits my website once, or give 5 scores for the person that go to my solution pages and visit my solution page, or 10 scores for a person that opens my email. So I can essentially grant scores automatically for the person or the contact, depending on their positive engagement with my brand. Opposite to this, I can do the negative one. So I can say, remove 5 scores if you don't answer my emails for 5 times, or remove this if you never visited my website, or remove this if you didn't click on the link. So I can also remove some points. And what it gives me is that by adding and removing the points, I can essentially assign different lifecycle stage with different HubSpot score. So I know that my subscribers should have this behavior, my marketing qualified leads should have this behavior, and my sales qualified leads should have this behavior. And in this manner, I can treat them differently, and I can see not necessarily, so my entry point won't be a form submission, but my entry point for the certain workflow will be a lead automatically changing the life cycle. So going from that marketing qualified to leads qualified, or from leads qualified to opportunity, right? So essentially, here's an example of how this might work for you. So I have a lead, and this is just a lead that never been engaged with Belkins. They have a 0 HubSpot score, right? Like 0. Then a lead goes and downloads a Belkins how-to guide. They just go to the website and download the guide. Once they downloaded the guide and they gave me the information, then they became a lead in my lifecycle structure, and they were assigned 21 points, because for me, all the leads should have 21 points automatically on HubSpot. That's it. So now I have a lead with 21 points, right? Because I have a lead and I have a lead nurturing sequence, I send 2 emails, 1 email and then in 2 days another. Because I can track the lead opened these emails, I can assign 5 scores per email. So now, instead of 21, this lead has 31 score already, right? After that, I send an invite for the webinar, and maybe you guys are one of the leads from my webinar, and you sign up for the webinar and you came in here today, right? So I am adding 10 more scores to your account. So now you are 41 score and you are a marketing qualified lead. So in a way, you downloaded the how-to guide, right? You opened 2 of my emails, and then you are on webinars. So it means that you are marketing qualified. So then once you become a marketing qualified lead, automatically HubSpot going to trigger an email from my BDR saying that, hey, you've been engaging with us quite a few times already. How was the webinar with Michael? Why don't you book a personalized consultation with Michael to talk about the appointment setting? If you book a call, then you will get 20 more points. And then now you're an SQL with a 61 point here, right? So basically you evolutionize from the being a lead with 0 points to being an SQL with 61 points. And there was a 0 interaction with me or with any one person in this process. So 0. So everything was done automatically based on your behavior, based on your user. This is just a very simple example of how this might work, but it can give you an idea of how you can treat differently the behavior and why the attribution is important, because you can automatically assign the positive and negative attributes, and HubSpot will calculate that automatically. And then depending on the trigger, then you can treat everything differently here.
And this is where the reporting in HubSpot can not only, help you set this up, but then improve over time. So maybe we figure out, oh, for some reason we're seeing a lot of folks drop off or not sign up for the webinar. We're seeing a lot of people stuck at 31. How do we fix that? Or do we need to add a different step? Or, what should we adjust the workflow? These types of questions. So yeah, really straightforward, good stuff.
This is a nurturing sequence. I'm not going to be spending too much time on it. Really, just want to show you that if there is a lead stage, for example, you can create a sequence of multiple emails with the delays, with multiple stages that can then you can track and then assign a positive scores to a certain. And then when the lead goes through this nurturing sequence, and then at the end they get a score of 61, 62, at any point of time, you can trigger an email, you can trigger a task from an SDR for the SDR, you can trigger anything whatsoever and be able to engage with that lead on certain personalized sessions. So when I think about the nurturing, when I think about this nurturing, and what I love about HubSpot is that in this workflow, you can have multiple interchanging instances. For example, when something happens, I can send a marketing email to a person. When something happens, I can send a Slack message to my guys informing them about, hey, John opened and spent 1 hour spending 1 hour on our presentation. Why don't you give a call to John right now, because they are thinking about working with us, right? I can change the contact property. For example, if you're not engaging, then you're not a marketing qualified lead. Then you are a lead. It means that from instead of the BDR, the owner of that contact will be my marketing manager, and then my marketing team that are going to be doing the nurturing. So I can automatically change the owner. So in this manner, you don't have any BDR with the hundreds or thousands of contacts in your CRM with different instances, and then BDR doesn't know what are those leads and how to work with them. It can have a clean assign or owner based, so that you don't have thousands of leads just laying around in your CRM, but really every lead matters. Every lead in the CRM system has certain goal, certain target that you wanted to hit with them, or a certain nurturing process, right? For example, you can also send a meeting link depending on the sort of like, hey, when this happens, send a meeting link. You can show advertising them on a stage or a life cycle. And by the way, this is something that we just discovered just a few months ago, Ross, and I didn't know about this personally. It appears that HubSpot can show different advertising depending on a deal stage in the pipeline. So I can show different advertising for people that were on a demo, with those that are highly qualified, or with those that I sent contract to. So in this manner, I can not just show one advertising to all the people in the pipeline, but really I can structure my pipeline and show different messaging for different people depending on their buying journey, which is like,
I would say, yeah, the HubSpot ads tool, it's kind of sneaky, it's underrated maybe, but it connects to your different ad accounts, and you can add people to the right audience, to your point. So yeah. That's awesome that you guys started using that.
Yeah, and this is something that my marketing team, they're excited about, because then they can create other smart ways of engaging and personalizing the messaging, right? 3 other things that I love: assigning tasks. For example, like if you don't reply to my emails for a long time, it's going to assign a task to someone to follow up with you via call, or for example, that remove you from the sequence, or do something else with you, or create a personalized manual email. You can enroll one lead to another in a different workflow automatically as well. So in a way, like if it's not happening, then you go to another workflow when something else is going to happen. And it helps to structure the process. And then if then, the best part, right? So if this happens, do this. If that happens, do that. And then you can have multiple kind of branching out multiple scenarios of working with individuals, maximizing your personalization level, right?
Could I throw in a number 9 to this?
Yeah,
like,
of course.
If we rearrange this and turned it into a 3x3, custom coded actions, right? Which is available with our operations hub. If anyone's more technical on the call, being able to insert lines of code, say JavaScript or HTML, something like that, into a workflow in order to make updates to your CRM or do something else. It's a very new concept for HubSpot, but there's actually a ton of partners and customers using that already. So again, especially for folks that are more like on the technical side of marketing, custom coded actions is something we're really excited about here too.
So how you utilize that essentially? So when you have a very complex process of utilizing CRM, you need some custom events, custom changeables, right? So you sort of like add the code in the process so that triggers whenever something happens, right?
That's right. And it's exactly, and it's its own action in the workflow. So it's called custom code action. I'll throw a link in the chat of some of the use cases for it if anyone's interested.
Perfect. Okay. All right. As I promised, 20 more minutes and we can answer some questions in here. And so if you have any questions, guys, please put them in the chat and then we can go through those questions together. And then Ross can answer something. Maybe I can answer something. Okay. We still have some time in here. So some of you guys asked questions about whether this webinar will be recorded. Of course, the recording will be available to you in the next few weeks, so you can listen to this and then later on follow up with me, Ross, and others to with any additional questions that you have. Okay, so I see someone. Okay, Justin raised the hands. Okay, Justin, Hey, Justin, I just enabled you. If you have any questions, go ahead with your question, but you're on mute.
Hey, thanks for that. That was an accident. My question was going to be the same as the other people's, if this recording would be available. But I also noticed you shared this programmable automation use cases. So basically what that link is showing us all the ways that we can automate certain instances in HubSpot. Is that what I assume?
It's what I would say is it's a part of the workflows tool that Michael showed earlier. And it often has to do with data quality or making big updates in your CRM. A good example is like phone numbers. Sometimes when people enter phone numbers into a form, right? Some people put the brackets or the parentheses around it. Some people put the plus country code. So what if you need to have that all cleaned up? You could use a workflow to automate that instead of having to update one by one or something like that.
Okay.
And there's a million different uses for it. I would say it's like many different things are possible with it depending on what type of code or actions you're trying to actually achieve, but it's part of our operations hub, which gets added into the marketing hub.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So two things that I wanted to mention here. Whenever you're just starting out with HubSpot, right, and you feel like you don't have $1,000 or $2,000 that you can spend on a fancy CRM, let's say, right? Because very many people that I talk to, they say, hey, it's very expensive. I don't have budget for this, right? So those that you don't know, you have a HubSpot free CRM with the basic features that you need to be operational. You really start with contacts, you start with companies, you start with deals tracking, with tasks, and you start with the website tracking, and that's it. And I think that for the first month of work, it's going to be a lot for you guys, because then everything will still be clean. You're still going to have the life cycles. You're still going to have the statuses. Everything will be in there. I think that, correct me, Ross, if I'm wrong, but I think that there are some additional features like forms, like 2 or 3 forms are available as well in the free package. Not just these features. There are some others, small ones, right? I think like...
Yeah, that's right. Forms, and I mean, email, like,
right,
simple email automation, not the more advanced stuff that you showed, but simple email follow-ups to forms. Yeah,
right. So you have that, and then as you go, what I'm doing personally, I love the marketing and sales hub. So the marketing hub is about automating my marketing, so automating those forms, workflows, making sure that I can trigger the HubSpot positive or negative attribution. So I'm starting really kind of going back to clients with that 4 minutes email and so on and so forth. So marketing is very important for me for that part. However, I also use the sales hub that enables my sales team, right? Because I also love the the way you can utilize the Chrome extension, because that one of the things that happens in every sales team is that you cannot just make the sales rep fills out the log in all the data, or make sure that they keep their CRM clean. You cannot just, it's like, it's like getting a treatment from cancer, right? Like every sales leader has the problem with their sales team not being able to, update your CRM. No one, right? And you always go ahead, and every meeting you say, hey, did you update your CRM? Did you update your deal status? Did you update statuses, right? Yeah,
happens in my team too. Everyone. Yep.
Right. Yep. And what I like about the sales hub Chrome extension is that my guys are using a lot the Gmail workspace, and when they're in Gmail, they can have a HubSpot layout on top of their Gmail, so they can work on their tasks, you can work on their deals, they can add documents, they can add tasks, meeting links, they can track, they can use templates, they can use sequences, and you can do that all from your Gmail. So in a way, they can update their CRM without actually going to HubSpot and doing that on HubSpot if you hate the CRM, because there are some people that say, oh, I don't like the CRM, right? And this is very cool, because in that manner, either you're using and updating everything on CRM, or you're doing that from your Gmail, for example. You can do both of those at the same time. That enables to have data cleaner inside the CRM. So I love that.
One thing there, and you kind of mentioned it earlier, when you're thinking about folks that manage their sales in a spreadsheet or in email, and that's it. The HubSpot email integration makes it all of your one-on-one emails show up in the CRM, just because those two are connected. So there's a lot of visibility without you having to do anything other than just send emails showing up in the CRM. So that's always helpful, especially for leaders or sales managers that want to quickly see what's going on with a given deal.
Yeah. And I use a lot like a forecasting part. So because I have a team of 10 sales execs, and we have clear KPIs for a monthly KPI, quarterly, and annual goals, right? What I do, I set up that forecasting inside HubSpot, so that when it's done, I can go ahead and I can see how my sales teams are progressing quarter or monthly, and how they're aligned and how they're compared. And I can see the pipeline, I can see the committed revenue. And this really creates a different, like a certain part of gamification, so that people really go ahead and check out where they are, what is the status, how their pipeline, actually hitting that 100% is important for the sales team. And especially even for the sales leaders that see their whole team completing their KPI and meeting their goals is amazing. And I love that part on HubSpot as well. And we are doing a lot of forecasting, and that helps me to coordinate the team and manage the team more powerfully there.
Looks like we just got a question, Michael. What KPIs have you set up for your sales team, maybe specifically for BDRs versus AEs? Thanks, Soren.
Thanks, Soren. So, I think that obviously that depends on the business and the business model and the team structure. But really, I think that for the BDRs, many people that I know, they just set up the number of appointments booked per se, or leads generated, right? I think that that's not the right way of doing this, because in that matter, the BDRs are just focusing on hitting the number, but they don't care about the quality of those appointments and how they're converting in the closed deals, right? So what I like to do, I like to set up a KPI in the quantity and the quality, right? Because if the quantity is, because you definitely need the quantity, right? You need a prediction. Am I getting 10 appointments per month, or 20 or 50?
It's a numbers game. It's a numbers game at some 100%. Level, but you also need quality, to your point.
Exactly. And they need to be incentivized, not just by hit that number, but they also need to be incentivized to hit the quality number. So if a sales exec, it's a teamwork. So I wanted to make sure that if the sales exec closes the deal, the BDR is also getting its incentiveness, is getting some candy on what they've done, right? And really kind of putting a tag on, hey, this is the lead that I brought, and and I'm the part of the sales team doing this. I'm not just the BDR doing that. For the sales team, it's a new revenue generated. That's it, right? So how many deals you close, what is the average deal size, how much time you're spending on closing the deal, and also the conversions, right? Because what happens is that you not just necessarily need to look at how much revenue you generate, but also how many deals you have in your pipeline that you have added on a monthly basis. Because very often, for example, you are not closing your revenue, not just because you are a bad sales rep, but you just don't have enough appointments in your pipeline. Because as Ross mentioned, it's a numbers game. So if you're at a 20% conversion from an appointment to a closed deal, so it means that and you're making $10,000 per deal, then you need 10 appointments to make $20,000, right? So if your KPI is making $40,000, then you need 20 appointments to close those 4 deals, right? So in a given month, if you have only 10 appointments, then setting up a KPI for a sales team of $40,000 will be not achievable. So in a way, if these are not unachievable numbers, then your sales rep will be demotivated, right? Because it's unrealistic number. I cannot hit it, so I'm not motivated to hitting it. So the number should be slightly higher than the possible ones, right? So that you always have that really kind of 100%, and then you're hitting 90, 95%, 98%, right? But that 100% is almost there, right? And then for AEs, it's for us personally, it's the retention revenue, it's an upsell, cross-sell, and and generally how you can make additional revenue, additional contract value from existing clients, and adding other products, cross-selling them, upselling them, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and just to the point of how you get to your number as a sales rep, maybe tracking the number of demos or proposals that you send, depends on what you sell. The number of discovery calls or initial meetings, right? You have to make sure those numbers match up with the revenue goals, so people know what they need to do to get to their number. Yeah.
And when I mentioned the forecasting, you have a team number that you can set up for everyone, and then you can see their contribution to an actual team goal that they are doing on a monthly basis, which is also great. Okay. So everything that we've been talking about right now, this is something that my team and we've been doing for the past 3 years, using HubSpot, building this internal BDR team, building internal sales team, AEs team, and so on and so forth. And what we realized that probably about half a year ago is that the inbound appointment setting process, actually going through and qualifying leads and categorizing them and booking calls and making sure that you have very high conversion from an inbound lead to appointment, is very similar and to the point of the efficiency that we're doing with the outbound appointment setting, where we're doing the same, just essentially we are reaching out proactively to people. So that's why probably about half a year ago, we introduced inbound appointment setting solution, which is in a way opposite to the outbound appointment setting solution, but in the same way mirroring the one another. So with the outbound appointment setting, we are researching leads, reaching out to people, qualifying them, booking appointments. With the inbound appointment setting, we're building HubSpot-based infrastructure on the client's behalf, setting up pipelines, setting up lifecycle, setting up positive, negative attribution, setting up forms, setting up campaigns, nurturing, and then assigning an SDR who will be controlling and managing all of this and talking and qualifying prospects, and then booking calls for your SEs so that your sales team can focus on just closing deals. So, and we've been partnering up with HubSpot since the last year and helping out. And for example, for those companies and folks that wanted the appointment setting and wanted the HubSpot process that I just showed you with Ross during this webinar, they can sign up for belkins.io/inbound appointment setting. They can book a call. We can get a consultation, get a scope of work, and then my team can set up this process for you. And you can work with me, my team, and Ross into implementing HubSpot. And then obviously, because we've done that Many times we've done that for some of our clients over the last 6 months, and we've done that successfully for many companies that I'm a part of, investor of, or just a part of my group. We can set up the same process, or a process that can be tailored for you guys. So if any of you interested and have a need, go ahead and sign up for this at belkins.io/inbound appointment setting. To close up, Ross, any things to mention to gang here? Maybe tips or things that they didn't know about HubSpot that they really can get a value from.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really exciting time for us as we continue to build out use cases and features in our CRM to, really complete that customer journey. So I think there's some fun things, that are coming down or that have recently showed up in the Service Hub for those that have customer service organizations or that have a high volume of inquiries, FAQs, those types of things. But no, I also just saw, maybe a couple other quick little questions here in the chat we can just touch on really quick. One was about the KPIs. Again, just how often do you change those, or how often do you make updates to your team's KPIs?
So I personally do that every 3 to 6 months. Really, the KPIs are just about, obviously I believe that they should be flexible, right? If they are not happening, you cannot say, well, we already set them up, so let's wait for another 6 months. No, if something is off, you didn't set up your KPI correctly, go ahead and change it, right? Because KPI should be motivator, not a sort of like a disabler of sort of like, not being able to empower the team, right? So that's why if you need to change something, go ahead and change it on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis. I don't know. The two things about, go ahead.
I think that's important. Like, you don't have to wait sometimes. If you can tell really early on, hey, this goal that we set is way too hard, or hey, it's way too easy, like, you're allowed to make those changes. Obviously, you want to think about how you position that to the sales team, but I think that's a great point. Like, check on it every 3 to 6 months, but feel empowered to change it faster. And then looks like Lori was asking about proposals. I can talk about this one. There's a lot of different options for this piece of the sales process. It depends on what your needs are, as far as what your contract looks like, what the signature / payment process is. HubSpot actually has a native, quoting tool, e-signature tool. We use that ourselves, so we use our own. Well. Yeah. But there's also great options that integrate with HubSpot. I think the long time sort of one that's really well known is called DocuSign, and then there's also newer PandaDoc, Proposify are two other ones. Yeah.
So we use PandaDoc for documents, specifically for contracts, but we use native quotes on HubSpot, where you can create a template. You can create a line of products. So you can set up like different products, like subscriptions or solution or different packages that you sell. And then your team can just go ahead, create a quote, create a proposal, add the packages, add the terms, add the notes, add a client from the pipeline directly, send it, sign it, pay it, and then just go ahead and just, and deliver the service. And you can do that automatically, all of that above, right? Going back quickly to the KPIs, two important things that I really wanted to mention that I learned later on.
Yeah.
So first, whenever you wanted to change the KPI, never change it after the fact. So in a way, like, for example, when you make a commitment with someone, with your sales rep about certain KPI, and someone didn't meet the goal, right? They say, hey, if you meet the KPI, or if you didn't do this, that's going to be this, or you're going to have this much money, or this is the bonus, or hey, you're going to be fine, right? Then later on, when you need to change something, when you change the KPI, then the new process or the new conditions will be available only after you change it, not before that. So in a way, you cannot go after the fact and say, hey, yeah, but we decided that it's a bad process. So all of the things that, for example, you don't want to pay for the bonus that they get because the KPI was too low, but they hit the 200% of the KPI. You still need to get paid that, work on that commitment. And only after you change it to a higher KPI, only then the new process and conditions kicks in. It's very important, right? Because then you should be fair with what you already done and say, right, about the commitment.
Yeah. Otherwise, you'll have some unhappy sales reps. Yeah.
100%, right. And also the AEs and BDRs should be, motivated and wanted for everything to be fair. And they wanted also to know that they are listened to and that they can change the KPI, that they are in control of their KPI, so that the KPI is not something that hanging around their neck, but this is to empower them. This is to give them the ability to be better, to make more money, to be more successful, and also explain how this is going to empower the company, and actually explaining the whole sort of like, logistics of it. Like, hey, this is
Yes.
if we're not doing these appointments, then we're not closing these clients, then we're not generating this revenue, then we are not hiring all these great people, or we're not moving to a new office, or we're not growing,
Building new features,
or building new features.
Yeah,
So they
yeah.
know that everything is connected. They are part of the bigger picture and actually understanding the picture, so that they know that everything starts with those appointments that they make. And this is very important, right?
Yeah. And to also, when you're making those updates to goals or talking about those, having those conversations, just encouraging people, because this is a very hard job, generating sales or closing deals. And it's mission critical for, companies to continue to grow.
100%. Okay, guys, we are out of time. I appreciate you all who stayed and to listen to us. As I mentioned, the recording will be available. You have our contact information. You have Belkins website. You have HubSpot website. Reach out if you have any questions. Be interested. Be motivated to set up this process. And I look forward to having you on our next webinars, where we'll be talking about some other interesting things that we are doing, that Ross and his team are doing. Okay, Ross, I appreciate you taking the time and joining us and sharing your experience.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, appreciate it, Michael.